Welcome to the Prosper Podcast with Keith Singer, the founder of Singer Wealth Advisors based in Boca Raton, Florida.
Okay, welcome back to Prosper with Keith Singer. This segment, I have a special guest, Ziv Tamir, and we're going to call this segment Wealth and Watches. Now, Ziv is an expert in the luxury watch market. So he buys and sells them, and he also is an expert in using social media to grow a business. So since so many of our listeners are affluent and may want to buy or sell a luxury watch, and so many of our listeners are business owners and may be interested in learning how to market their business using social media, I thought Ziv would be an interesting guest. So welcome, Ziv. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Keith. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy and grateful to be able to have this conversation with you.
Excellent. So Ziv, I think a lot of people may not know this, but when it comes to luxury watches, they're actually not that easy to get, right? Explain what's going on in the luxury watch market. If I want to go buy a Rolex, how does it even work?
Absolutely. Okay, so the definition of luxury, if you look up the word luxury, it means that it's hard to get, as it is, right?
Mhm.
So now, in general, the luxury watch market it's always a little bit of an adventure to find the perfect watch for you, regardless of what the market is like. So, for example, the market right now is a very interesting market. You'll notice if you try to find a specific, like let's say, for example, you love the Rolex Daytona watch, right? Let's say you're like, I love the you go onto Rolex's website, right?
Right.
Which, by the way, interestingly enough, like a side note, yeah, I was looking up zivtamir.com. I used to have it for years. I used to direct to my website, zivthewatchguy.com.
Mhm.
And I look up zivtamir.com the other day, and you won't believe it. Like I forgot to renew it on GoDaddy, and now it gets directed straight to Rolex.
Oh,
I'm not even sure how to think about it yet, but it's just funny. But if you go on to like zivtamir.com or rolex.com, you'll see, and you look up a Rolex Daytona, you'll see that it's and you say, I love that watch. You walk into Rolex's store and you ask for that watch. Any authorized dealer of Rolex, they'll just laugh you out the door. And that means you're like, what do you mean? I'm here. I'm willing to pay $15,000 for a stainless steel watch that I happen to like. And are you telling me that I cannot have it? And they'll tell you to get online, and the wait list is a few decades.
hmm.
Okay, so that's just an example of what it's like to find certain watches. It's not every watch. That's an example of a watch that's an extreme, just to give you an idea of what's going on. So people rely on, like, let's say someone says I must have it, they rely on the gray market, people like me, to get it for them the same day, but it just costs more money.
All right. So you make a market. How do you get them?
So the way that the market's currently going right now is that people are buying everything out of the authorized dealers, right? All the hot watches, all the watches that like everyone wants, right? And there's a secondary market. I like calling it the secondary market, because people are buying it from the authorized dealers, and they are reaching out to people like me and say, hey, Ziv, I have a watch for sale. How much would you pay for this watch? And I buy watches. So, and I'll make an offer on any watch. You send me any watch, I'll make an offer.
So you're a market maker. You buy watches from people that want to sell, and you sell watches to people that want to buy, and you sell them with like the box and everything's authentic, right?
Everything that I sell is 100% guaranteed authentic. As far as whether it comes with a box or the papers and all that, it's on a case by case basis. Like for example, sometimes like if you buy a vintage Rolex Submariner, sometimes the only thing you have when you buy the watch is an older broken watch, and that's what it comes with. You know what I mean? And that's something that I would pay, let's say, if $5,000-10,000 for. But then it's a project watch. So now, does it have the original box? No, but it's an amazing piece.
All right. So a lot of our listeners know about you buy stocks, they go up, you sell stocks, hopefully you make money. What about watches? Can you buy a watch and then sell it in 5 or 10 years and make money? Do they appreciate or they go down?
Okay, so if you're talking about watches like Rolex watches, you can be rest assured that in the long run, right, they do keep up with inflation and they get ahead of inflation. That's what history has shown, right? Especially when you're talking about Rolex watches, Rolex Datejust, Rolex Submariners, Rolex Presidentials, the sport model Rolex watches. they've done that for the past 100 years. They've been going up in value significantly, and they're great long-term investments, as far as keeping up with inflation. Now, if you know the market well, you could also you can monetize by buying well. So like you could find a good find, you could buy the watch and then remarket it, sell it in a different market, and you make more money. So that's what we're buying watches that are pre-owned. We're having them we're having them repaired and by the best watchmakers who are bringing them to like new condition, and we have a small markup and we sell a lot of volume.
Okay. What's the most expensive watch right now?
So there's watches that are millions of dollars. Now the watches that I deal with, primarily they range between like 5,000 to $2.5 million. So
Wow.
right now, for example, like the market, like the Patek Philippe, right, with the Tiffany dial, the 5711, right? That watch, for example, at one point was selling for $5-6 million, right, when it came out. Right now, that model is selling for right around $1 million.
Big loss.
But on average, the watches that we're selling are like 50, 60, $70,000, $100,000.
Okay. You're a market maker in watches, you buy and sell, and you were able to use social media to really grow your business. You have about 600,000 followers on Instagram. How did you go about doing that, and how has it impacted your business?
Okay, so that's a great question. So social media is a game changer for businesses. You just have to know how to market and understand what the consumers and give the consumers what they actually want. It's funny because not only has this social media blown up my business to the extent that there's so many new customers that we're meeting on a daily basis and serving on a daily basis, and keeping all of our sales reps very busy on a daily basis. But it's come to the point where even customers of ours that have their own businesses have hired me to do marketing for them. For example, you might have seen on my Instagram, M Bank. He does mortgages for entrepreneurs. It's amazing. He's a great customer who's bought many watches from me in the past, always looking for the good investment. He's in the he's made a lot of money on his watches. So he has a business that does mortgages, and he's like, Ziv, can you help me on social media? So he hired me to start doing marketing for him. I just started doing a little bit of it. I'm really excited to let the market know about his amazing service as well. That's just one of like 20 other examples of businesses that I'm able to help with like what I call the Ziv method.
Well,
Okay.
how did you get 600,000 followers? One of the things that you do on your Instagram, which is Ziv the Watch Guy, or what's your Instagram?
Yeah. So my Instagram is Ziv.Tamir, which is spelled Z like zebra, V like Victor, dot T like Tom, M like Mary, R like Rachel. Ziv.Tamir.
So what Ziv does, he goes up to people with watches and he asks them, "Oh, what is that watch?" And tell us what you do for a living and any advice. And is that what happened? Like just started doing that, and then it just went viral.
Started thinking to myself, what could I do to let people know that I sell watches, right? I was looking at other trends and things like that. And, I also have a sort of like an incubator company where I teach people the watch business, and I teach them how to flip watches. So one day I was going to someone in our community, and out of the kindness of my heart, I wanted to offer him this opportunity to teach him how to flip watches. He tells me, hey, I don't need to learn how to flip watches. I have my own marketing company and I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. And I was like, oh, great. And he tells me, but I have a question for you. Why isn't anyone doing what Daniel Mack does for cars for luxury watches? And I watch Daniel Mack all the time, where he runs up to people and says, hey, I love your car. What do you do for a living? Right.
Yeah.
The second I heard that, I'm like, this is me. That's my calling, because I love people and I love to learn about my clients and my customers. I love helping and getting the word out about their businesses as well. So, and I love knowing what they do and what caused that success. And I use it as motivation. So I said, how about I share that with the world? So the next day, pretty much, I remember it was July 4th, 2022 was my first video where I tried it, and it was an immediate success.
That's awesome. No, so you ask people, what advice would you give our viewers? You must have heard some good advice. And as a business owner, what advice would you give a business owner right now who wants to grow their business?
The advice that I would give is to double and triple, quadruple down on social media marketing. That is,
Okay.
marketing is very, very important. And if you don't have a strong social media presence, you are going to become obsolete.
You can be great at what you do, but if no one knows that you do it, what's the difference, right?
Right. But not only that, there's some great companies out there, that they're missing the boat. They have to realize that the people are social consumers now, and it's becoming more and more of a thing where the people are on social media all the time, and that's where people are spending so much time. So you got to put yourself out in the market where the people are.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the advice. We really appreciate it. And you guys, if you need to buy a watch or sell a watch, you got your guy right here, Ziv Tamir. Great advice on growing a business and also how to, make sure that you buy a watch and get a good deal on it, so that hopefully, if you ever want to sell it, it can be worth more than what you paid. So, really appreciate it, Ziv, and thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you
I
soon.
just want to add that if someone mentions the name Keith, I'll make sure that we'll give them VIP treatment.
Right.
So whether you're looking to buy, sell, or trade, we have any high-end watch, Rolex, Patek Philippe, AP, Richard Mille, buy, sell, or trade, new or pre-owned, we will hook you up. You mentioned the name Keith, you're going to get the VIP white glove treatment guaranteed.
That sounds great. That's it for today's Prosper. I'm Keith Singer, wishing you clarity, confidence, and control in your retirement.
Thanks for listening to the Prosper Podcast. You can also catch the Prosper radio program every weekend on WJNO West Palm Beach, WIOD Miami, and WHPT Tampa. The opinions expressed on this podcast are strictly those of the participants. Singer Wealth Advisors is an SEC-registered advisory firm. The information provided is for general informational purposes only and is not intended to provide specific investment advice or recommendations for any individual. The investments discussed may not be suitable for all investors. It is suggested you consult with your financial professional regarding your individual situation. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Upon liquidation, the investment may be worth more or less than its original cost. All guarantees offered by insurance companies are subject to the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Singer Wealth Advisors is not a law firm and does not provide legal advice. However, the firm's principal, Keith Singer, is an attorney licensed in the state of Florida. Mr. Singer does practice law through his law firm, Keith Singer, PA.